a powder room, if you're going to put what appears to be a piece of furniture that we talked about earlier with the plumber, that may be on legs, you can see underneath it. And normally in powder rooms like this, you're putting it on hardwood flooring. And if you're putting it on ceramic tile, you can go ahead and set that cabinet down. But if it's hardwood flooring, I do not want you to set that vanity in the powder room at this time. You've got to wait until the hardwood flooring, they sand and finish it before you put that cabinet in there. So leave that off until later. When they measure for your solid surface countertops, you've got to have available all your sinks, because they're going to take those back to the plant. They may either attach them to the solid surface material, the granite or corian or whatever, and have all the specifications for your appliances, because they're going to be cutting that solid surface to fit exactly your appliance. And a lot of these solid surface countertop places, they sell sinks at a good price, and a lot of people just buy their sinks from them. But if that's not the case, you're going to need to have all your sinks available to give to the solid surface company to take back to the plant with them. You're also going to need to know the faucets you're going to be using. And primarily, you're going to need to know what is called the spread, either a 4-inch spread between the handles or an 8-inch spread between the handles. It would be best if you would just go ahead and purchase those items now if you haven't already done so. After they finish all the cabinets, you can now have your trim carpenter back in there if they've left for some reason, and they can finish running any base molding or crown molding, for example, up to your cabinets. If you recall, I told you on your very expensive exterior doors, primarily like a front door, a custom front door, I told you to install the frame but not the door. And you want to put that door in a safe place. Now is when you need to go ahead and install that custom front door on the home while the trim carpenter's there. After the trim carpenter has finished and these other items have been finished, like the cabinets, you want to have your drywall sub back on the job to go through and touch up and repair any drywall that needs repairing. A lot of times when they're installing trim, when they're installing cabinets, they will have to bust up the drywall, or they'll just mar up the drywall. And you want the drywall sub to go through the entire home and repair any and all drywall that needs repairing. If you didn't withhold money on the drywall sub, you may have to pay them a little extra money to do this. And even if you did withhold money, if other people are getting in there messing up the drywall, that's not really the drywall subcontractor's fault. And they should be paid extra for a lot of this repair work. Once all this stuff is done, you're now ready for your interior painting and staining. If you're waiting on cabinets, then you may want the painter in there prior to the cabinets going in. It just depends on when the cabinets are coming. So there's a chance the painter could get in and do this now, or if the cabinets have already been delivered, they'll do it after the cabinets have been installed. The main thing is you want everyone out of the home while the painter is working on the home. A lot of great paint jobs are messed up by other trades being in the home, stirring up dust, and it's settling on that paint. So you want everybody out. You want to let the painter in there all by themselves to get this interior painting completed, and nobody else in the home. This is where I really stress to you the possibility of hiring an interior designer to help you choose stain colors, interior paint colors, and stuff like this. I'm not good at choosing this stuff, so I always deal with a designer. But I've seen so many people just so confused in the home about what to do and where to mix and match colors and stuff like this. And I always steer them toward an interior designer. And the interior designer comes in, goes through all these colors with ease, just gets the owner or even me, the builder, just satisfied with what's going to happen. And it's just so much nicer to do this. You may want to go in, and after the home is cleaned out real good, you may want to rent a heavy-duty vacuum cleaner and vacuum it out real good. If you're going to prime and paint the trim, as we do in most homes nowadays, the painter will now get in and they will caulk and putty all the trim and everything throughout the home. Now, they're not going to caulk and putty any material that's going to be stained. This is the stuff you'll be priming and painting. After they finish all this caulking and puttying, they're going to go in and prime all the interior trim. And what I highly recommend you do is use a lacquer primer on all your doors, all your trim. It just gives you a much nicer, neater job. And they will normally spray this lacquer primer on the trim, which I'm fine with that. After they put on this lacquer primer, they will come in and they will paint all the trim. Now, I'm still from the old school where I like an oil-based paint on all my doors and all my trim. As I mentioned earlier in the course, the oil-based paint being a petroleum product, a lot of paint manufacturers appear to be getting away from oil-based paint. In certain parts of the country, I think there's a strong move to get away from oil-based paint. And you just need to check on what consider their better or best, paint for different things. Any manufacturer can tell you what they recommend, and they can find out which state you're in and tell you what they recommend. And I must admit, some of the latex paints they have now are probably fine. I just still prefer the oil-based paint for all my doors and trim. On all your walls, they'll use a latex, and I want at least 2 coats of latex on the walls. And on the latex on the walls, unless you have a Class 5 drywall finish that we discussed earlier, I highly recommend you use a flat finish on the paint, because if you use any kind of eggshell or gloss or something like this on the walls, it's going to show every flaw in the drywall, and that drywall is not perfect. The only way you come close to perfect on drywall is to have a Class 5 finish, which costs an arm and a leg. If you'll go with a flat finish on the drywall, it will not show all those flaws, and I just personally think it gives you a much nicer look. You want to remind your painter to prime the top and bottom of all your doors, to seal them. If it's a stained door, they can seal it. If they do not at least prime or seal the top and bottom of those doors, especially your exterior doors, moisture can get in there and create a problem for you later. Also remind your painter that he's a good painter, and he's going to get in there and dust off all the walls and everything before he paints them. Because when the drywall sub gets in there, they'll sand the walls and leave dust on the walls. When the painter gets in there and primes it, a lot of times they just cover over this dust. And so a lot of times the painter has to get in there and kind of sand off the primer coat before he sprays on the 1 or 2 coats of latex. And if they do sand it and prep the wall, they need to dust this off, because a lot of good paint jobs are messed up by this dust still being on the wall or on the trim. Your better painter should be able to do basic stain work, like if you're going to stain doors, or if you're going to stain any base mold, crown molding. The painter should be capable of doing this. I will say the painters that really, really, really know how to do this are residential painters. Most of them have died. And the only ones remaining, they only work on the big multi-million-dollar homes. And when you build like a nice library, if it's going to be a stained grade library, when you think of how much money you spend in material and labor, the last thing you want is just the average painter going in there and staining that room. And so what we've done in the past is we will get with like a furniture finisher to go into those areas where they will stain it, and it will be like a piece of furniture. Now, it can cost quite a bit of money, but that's what a lot of people that are in homes that have libraries and stuff, that's what they want. And they're willing to pay it to get what they want. I've talked about the faux painter. The faux painter, many times, they're capable of doing, if they don't do faux stain work where it looks like stain work, a lot of your faux painters are also excellent stainers. So you can check with them and see if they can do any of your, high class stain work. But your basic stuff, handrails and things like this, your painter should be capable of doing it. When the painter starts off, he's going to remove all the weather stripping on your exterior doors. And I like for them to remove it so they're not getting paint all over it. You need to get a hold of that weather stripping and store it in a safe place. You don't want it thrown away or trashed or anything like this. And you hang on to it, and you'll find out later when we're going to bring it back out to reinstall. After the painter completes the interior, you'll have your cleanup crew out there to clean all the windows on the exterior of the home and the interior of the home. Because when the painter paints the interior, he's going to get paint all over the glass, which is good because that creates a good bond between the window frame and the glass. And they're going to get glass all over the inside, just like they did on the exterior. And you want a crew to come in there and clean all the windows real good, exterior and interior. You can now hire your trim carpenter, but I will tell you, there are companies out there now that all they do is they install locks, interior and exterior locks, deadbolts, and a lot of little different miscellaneous items like towel racks and stuff like that they can install. And I have found these companies to be, to me, a little better than the trim carpenters. Not only do they do a good job, but a lot of them also sell, locks, different manufacturers. And if you buy your locks from them, sometimes I feel like the price is pretty good by going through them. And they really stand behind their work. Now, as I mentioned, on your very expensive custom front door, whoever built that door, I want them to furnish and install the lock. Now, I pay them for it, but if anybody's going to mess with that expensive door, I want it to be the company that made the door, because I do not want someone to come in there and botch up that, $5,000 or $10,000 door. But they can get on the job now and install all your exterior locks and your deadbolts, and now you're in a position to lock up the home if you need to. And now's not a bad time to lock up the home so that you can regulate, who's coming in and out of that home. And you can go to someone like Home Depot and you can purchase a lock box that you can hang on the door or hang on the garage door someplace. And you can put a key in there and you can give the code to whoever's going to be entering the home, and you can change that code if you feel like it's necessary. And that way you don't have to always be there. And that way only those subs that need to be working on the home will be able to access it. After this painting, you can, if they have the countertops ready for all your cabinets, all your solid surface countertops, you can go ahead and have all those installed at this time. After they finish this, or just so they finish the cabinets, they don't have to have the solid surface countertops in. I'd prefer them to be in. You can now have your hardwood floor subcontractor prepare and sand and finish those real hardwood floors. And on the hardwood floors, make sure you're dealing with a company that has a vacuum system for their sanders. Now, there are some companies that they have a dust-free system, which is really great. Now, it doesn't have to be that high-dollar dust-free system, which I really like, but it needs to have sanders with vacuums on it so that 95% of that dust, they're sucking up in a vacuum. If they don't have a vacuum system on those sanders, you are going to see like a 1-inch layer of dust all through your home, and that is a mess, a cleanup mess on top of that. So it's not the super dust-free system, but it is a dust-free system when they sand all those floors. And when they finish them, now there's some exotic finishes out there that you will see on pre-finished flooring that's just, it's so hard a cat couldn't scratch it. But on your basic hardwood flooring, most consumers still prefer the polyurethane finish. Years ago, we used to use the oil finish on hardwood floors, and in some parts of the country and parts of the world, they still use the oil finish. Now, the good part about the oil finish is it would soak into the wood and make it harder. It was easy to repair, scratches and stuff like this. But the problem with the oil finish is you had to wax and buff it. And most consumers do not want to fool with wax and buffing a floor. Most consumers prefer the polyurethane finish that they can easily maintain with a damp mop. I would recommend that you go with 3 coats of poly and get a price for 3 coats, but you're only going to put 2 coats of poly on the floor at this point in time. And snoop around and make sure they put 2 coats of poly down. Because they'll put one down, and then after that kind of sets up, they'll put a second one. It just gives you a much more luxurious look. But sometimes they'll get in there and they'll put a real thick coat on and they'll tell you that, well, that's 2 coats. And I question that. I want to know that they did put down 2 coats of poly. And you're going to hold up on the 3rd coat until when I tell you. And after they put those 2 coats of poly on there and they adequately set up, you want to go in there and cover the floors. And you could cover them wall to wall if you wanted to. I've see some people do it. They'll go and get what I call rosin paper. Or you can go to that company I told you about, Protective Products. There are several companies like this. Protective Products sells all kind of products that you can put on top of marble, ceramic tile, and hardwood flooring, that you can run down the main traffic areas of the hardwood flooring. And I tell you, I like those products even better than the rosin paper. The rosin paper can be a little difficult. And by the way, if you put rosin paper down and you're taping it together, do not let the tape be taped to the polyurethane finish, or it will leave a tape mark in the polyurethane finish. So these products at Protective Products, where you can roll them right in the main walk areas, I think are very good to help protect the hardwood flooring for the rest of the work that's going to be done. And again, if you want to cover them wall to wall, that's your prerogative. After they finish the hardwood flooring, you're going to have your 3 major subs back on the job: plumbing, heating and air, and electrical, to do the finals. Right when they're there and or right before they get there, there are companies out there, all they do is install appliances. We normally used to have the plumber install the dishwasher, the disposal. We'd have the electrician install the vent hoods and ovens and all this stuff. Some of these appliances are becoming more and more and more sophisticated. And I have found, no offense to the plumbers and electricians and heating and air subs, but those guys just do not do quality work on installing these appliances in most cases. I prefer dealing with these companies. That's all they do. Now, some companies, wherever you buy your appliances, they have installation crews, which is great. But they know, all the latest technology around this stuff, and they do an excellent job, and they're going to get out there and install your appliances like vent hoods. If you're going to be purchasing washers and dryers from them, they can install those. Your large, refrigerators like Sub-Zero refrigerators and freezers. There's a lot to it. You just don't slide them in the wall on some of these appliances. There's more to it than that. And these professional installers, to me, are well worth the money. And they need to, a lot of times get out there and kind of install some of this stuff at the same time or right before some of these plumber and heat and air and people come into the job. I do want to throw into the mix, if you're going to deal with any cast, I guess I would call it cast stone, where you have a cast stone fireplace around, or you're going to build a cast stone hood over your cooktop. Now is when I normally have those companies on the job to install those cast hoods on top of the vent hood. Sometimes they prefer to put the cast hood up there and then install the vent hood. So you need to talk with your cast stone people, talk with your appliance installer, and find out. And usually the cast stone people will know what's going to be the easiest, best way to do. But talk with your installer and see if that's going to be the best way to handle it. There's a little bit of coordination here. If you're doing any cast stone work, like a hood above a cooktop that you see in some some of your more expensive homes, and even your cast iron surround or your cast stone surrounds on a fireplace. So just talk with this sub. I wanted you to be aware of it so you can find out the best way to coordinate this work being done. But a lot of times they don't want to do the fireplace surrounds until the hardwood floors are finished, because a lot of times the hardwood floor, when they stain the floors, they will get that stain on that cast stone and it will soak in and stain the stone, and that can be a problem. But you're going to have your plumber out there and they're going to install the toilets. And on the toilets, they have the toilets now that it's almost impossible to stop them up. And what I've seen some people do is they'll put those toilets, because they're expensive, they'll put those like in the master a bath. They'll put them in a powder room, maybe a guest bathroom, and they're great. I mean, you will never ever have to use a plunger on those toilets right there. The plumber will install all the sinks, all the fixtures. They'll hook up the dishwasher, the disposal that could have been installed by the appliance installer. They'll deliver and install the water heaters. You remember what I said earlier about the water heater? I would go from a 40 to at least a 50 gallon, preferably 2 50-gallon water heaters. If you're holding off that piece of furniture in the powder room so they can sand and finish the hardwood flooring, that's been done. So the plumber can go ahead and set that vanity and hook up the sink and fixture on that vanity like in a powder room. And then the plumber will get a final inspection. And by the way, the plumber, heat and air electrician, you don't need to stagger them like we did during the rough end. You can have them all working together, and they're real happy because they're getting ready to be paid again. So while the plumber's there, you'll have the heating and air sub there, installing all the registers, hooking up the thermostats, setting the compressors or heat pumps outside, unless you set them earlier so you could cut heat on the home. And the heating and air sub will get a final inspection. The electrician will be there and they will wire up everything the plumber, the heating and air sub has installed. They'll put on all the switches and cover plates. They'll put all the trim on the recessed lighting. They'll hang all the interior light fixtures, all the exterior light fixtures. They'll install a pulley for a chandelier, a heavy chandelier. So if you want to raise and lower it to change bulbs and clean it, you can do so. The electrician will install the pulley at this point. They'll connect up all the appliances that the appliance installer has installed. They'll wire your heating and air units if they haven't been wired. They'll wire the water heaters if they're electric water heaters. And they will get a final inspection. Also at this time, you'll have your low voltage sub or subs on the job, completing the vacuum system, the intercom system, your security system, the telephone, the cable TV, and then the home theater. And I'll mention if you have a residential elevator, they'll be winding up their work on the residential elevator at this time. Go through the home, pick up any and all owner manuals, installation manuals. There's a bunch of them laid around. Pick them up, file them away, or they're going to wind up in the trash. It's long about now that I will install the backsplash, let's say in a kitchen, above the kitchen counter. And I want you to wait until you get your final electrical inspection primarily before you install the cabinet backsplash. Hopefully you're in an area where they have separate inspectors for the plumbing, the heating, and air, and electrical, so you can have your electrical inspection completed and passed, rather than being in one of those cities or counties where they come in at the very end and they inspect everything at one time, which I mentioned. I just do not like that, but it happens, and you got to live with it. I want the electrical inspection done before I do the backsplash on the cabinets. Because too many times I've seen the inspector get in there and for some reason an outlet is not in the correct location above a kitchen cabinet. And speaking of which, on the outlets on a cabinet, what we normally do is we will put a plug-in strip underneath the wall cabinet, and we keep those outlets off the wall. And that way, anything that's sitting on the counter, we can just plug it right up in that plug-in strip underneath the wall cabinet. Makes it a lot nicer and keeps that outlet out of the backsplash tile, which can sometimes just botch up the look of that tile. But if you're not doing a plug-in strip, get the electrical inspection done, because the inspector, it'll be your luck. They'll come in and want you to move an outlet where the tile is, or add an outlet where the tile is. And that's a major upset. So if you have not installed the tile, you can do this. Add an outlet, move an outlet, whatever's necessary. When you pass your final electrical, then you can come in and do your backsplash and get it nice and neat, and you don't have to worry about tearing it out. After you get your electrical inspection, you can have your installation subcontractor come into the job and go ahead and blow all the insulation in the attic. I wait until now, because if they blow that insulation in the attic and then you get in there and you've got to move or do something with, let's say, your recessed light cans, it is a real hassle to fool with that if all that insulation is blown up there. If you've got all this handled and you've passed the electrical inspection, then it is what it is. And you can now go up there and blow in the insulation. My preference is the blown-in cellulose. However, some people just love the look of that puffed up white fiberglass. It is nice and neat looking. I think personally that the cellulose is a better product than the fiberglass. And so I will blow in cellulose. If the thickness of your ceiling joist where your attic is not as thick as the insulation you would like to put up there, you remember you built a walkway from the pull-down stairs over to your heating and air unit in the attic, if this is the case. Well, if that ceiling joist is a 2x8 and you're putting in, let's say, 18 inches of insulation, then that insulation goes above the ceiling joist, and it would cover up your walkway. So what you may need to do is just get some flashing, or you can build it out of cardboard or whatever. You could build it out of wood and build a curb on that walkway so that when you blow the insulation up there, it does not cover over your walkway. As you wind up all this stuff, now's a good time, if you're going to have wallpaper, that you will get a wallpaper hanger in there, which is normally labor, and install all the wallpaper. Now, we do not see as much wallpaper as we used to use in a home. On the wallpaper, I do stress that you did prime every wall in every room of the home. If you put wallpaper on drywall you haven't primed, you got a royal mess in the future if you ever go to strip it off. It'll pull the backing off the drywall. So you need to at least prime the drywall where you're going to put wallpaper. But I would go one step further. I would have the wallpaper hanger install a wallpaper undercoating on top of the primer. It gives you a much nicer, neater job on your wallpaper. It makes it a lot better to peel off in the future if you ever want to remove it. So you put a wallpaper undercoating on top of the primer before you do the wallpaper. You have the wallpaper hanger do this. whoever you're buying your wallpaper from, you could also check with the wallpaper hanger. Just do a little research, because there are some brands of wallpaper out there that are just, they're worthless. And either the supplier will know it, and or the wallpaper hanger, if they've been around for any length of time, they're going to know what brands are just not good. About the same time, you can have a glass subcontractor installing all the mirrors. And on the mirrors, do not use 1/8 of an inch glass. Use at least a 1/4 inch glass. If you use 1/8 of an inch, you're going to see a distortion in the mirror. It just drives you crazy. And if you're planning on putting like a wood frame around the mirror, the easiest thing to do is go in and install all your mirrors, and you can have your trim carpenter come back and actually glue a frame to the edge of the mirror, a wood frame, if you're going to go with that look right there. The glass companies can also build and install all your shower doors, all your shower enclosures. Again, like in the master bath, you may want a frameless shower enclosure. Love them, they're beautiful, and they're expensive. So what a lot of times we'll do is we may put a frameless in the master bath, and then in the secondary bathrooms, we'll put a frame shower enclosure. Now's a good time to go ahead and install all your pre-finished hardwood flooring, any vinyl floors that you're going to install. On the vinyl floors, I would encourage you to go on the internet and look at the specifications for whichever vinyl floor you're going to install. Some vinyl floors, they highly stress that you have the floor temperature 70 degrees or warmer. I'm not talking about the air temperature, the floor temperature, 70 degrees or warmer, to get a real first-class job on vinyl flooring. And some of them want you to maintain that for like about 4 or 5 days. So look at their specifications, and you need to follow their specifications. Also, on a lot of vinyl floors, they do not honor any guarantee if you put it directly on the subflooring. What they want you to do is come back, and on top of the subflooring, you put a second layer of flooring we call underlayment. I want you to find out what the manufacturer recommends for underlayment, because I've seen different manufacturers recommend different things for underlayment. Just remember, if you go down and put down underlayment, be sure to put down a layer of 15-pound felt between the underlayment and your subflooring to minimize squeaks. At the same time, you can put down your carpet and pad. On the carpet and pad, I recommend you go in and you clean the home real good, because I've seen them put the pad right on top of all kind of junk. So clean out the home real good before they get in there to install the carpet and pad. You would be better served to spend more money on pad than carpet. If you go look at carpet, they'll show you good, better, and best. And when you can see carpet from the side, it's easy to tell what's good, better, and best. However, when they put it down on the floor, unless you have a trained eye, sometimes it's hard to tell what's good, better, and best. As a matter of fact, some crooked carpet dealers, they'll sell you best, and then they'll just put good on the floor, and you don't know the difference. So spend more money on the pad, and my recommendation is you use what is called an 8-pound pad. That's kind of the Mercedes in the carpet pad, an 8-pound pad. And those of you building in the Southeast especially, because we have major carpet mills up in Dalton, Georgia, I will say, by dealing with Carpets of Dalton, if you will venture to Carpets of Dalton in Georgia, and we'll give you information on them at 24/7, you will save a significant amount of money. And they can recommend installers in your area that can measure the home, so they can call back and tell exactly what you need. And I have found you will just get one heck of a deal if you will make that trip. And what they'll do is they'll ship it to your installer in your area. Your installer will install it, and it just works out real good on saving a bunch of money. Carpets of Dalton. And by the way, if you're able to make it to Carpets of Dalton, go and look at the remnants in the back. Those are the best deals. And they have tons of remnants. I mean, they'll have rolls that could do an entire home. So don't think you're only limited to a 12-foot by 12-foot room. Because when you go, if you ever have a chance to go through the carpet mills and see that process, it is fascinating. But when they're inspecting this carpet, those inspectors may see a little glitch in the carpet, and they will just automatically stop that production and cut out a big swat of carpet and pull that out, and they sell it to people like Carpets of Dalton as a remnant. That little bitty flaw, the normal person would never in 1,000 years see that little flaw in the carpet, but yet they can sell you that remnant far cheaper than they can, let's say, the first grade of carpet. So if you go to Carpets of Dalton, go to the back, look at the remnants, and that's where you're going to get the really good deals. On your carpet, you're going to hear that they recommend that the floor be 50 degrees or warmer, not the outside air, the floor, 50 degrees or warmer. If they put that carpet and pad on an ice cold floor, when you heat the home up, that carpet will just kind of give and it'll look like the Atlantic Ocean. So get it 50 degrees or warmer, and then when they install it and stretch it, you don't have to worry about them coming back. Again, you can go to that company called Protective Products, and you can buy products to cover your carpet, to cover your vinyl flooring, whatever, so you can protect it against people walking in the home at this point. You could go to the expense of getting those little booties like you see in a hospital room, where you mandate every sub that comes in now must put those little booties on their boots before they tromp in the house. It's amazing how these subs, it just beats all I've ever seen, will walk in on white carpet with muddy boots on. Just unbelievable. And I know some people that will go and force them to put those booties on if they're going to walk in the home. I can understand that. If you're not going to do that, at least have material down so they can walk on, so they're not walking directly on your carpet or other flooring. After they finish this flooring, you can now have your trim carpenter back out there to build out your closets, or you can have these subs that go out and put these wire closets in place. I'll be honest with you, I don't like the wire closets. They are, you'll save money and they're neat looking. I just don't like them. And some of you may choose to go with your custom closets, such as California closets, and they'll install all these closets at this point in time. Okay, you're now ready for your final trim and lockout. You could hire the trim carpenter to come back and do the final trim and lockout, which is understandable. However, there are people that's all they do are these lockouts. For example, I told you about the individual that would furnish and install exterior locks. They also do interior locks, and they can do door stops and hinge stops. However, you may get your trim carpenter to do a lot of this stuff, and you'll pay them extra. They'll come in there and cut off any doors that may be dragging on the carpet. They'll rehang any doors that the carpet sub may have taken down. You can have the trim carpenter or a separate company install all your interior, go in there and install all the shoe molding on your hardwood flooring, on your vinyl floors, on any marble. On the shoe mold, architecturally, the shoe mold should be the same color as the base mold. However, a lot of people like to stain the shoe mold to be the color of the hardwood flooring. Whatever you choose, just go with that. Whichever you do, like if you're going to stain it, I would stain the shoe mold before the trim carpenter cuts and installs it. And then all you have to do is just touch up the joints. The same is true if you're going to paint the shoe mold, let's say the color of the base mold. It needs to be at least primed, and you can buy shoe mold already primed. It needs to be primed before they install it. And then it's a lot easier for the painter to paint the color and just touch up the joints. Your trim carpenter, if you're going to have any kick plates on your doors, they can install those. If you have any thresholds that need to be installed, the trim carpenter can install those. The trim carpenter can also do towel racks, tissue holders, if you want them to fool with that at this point in time. When they do all this final trim and lockout, when they complete this, you want your cleanup crew back in there. This is a subcontractor, and they will clean the home from head to toe, and they'll make it shine like new. And they are well worth the money. They're subcontractors. One thing I want you to stress to your cleanup crew, though, is tell them do not stand on the solid surface countertops. You'll go into homes and see them standing on those solid surface countertops as they're cleaning, like a wall cabinet up high or something like this. Don't do that. Because if there's not a good tight seat between that solid surface countertop and the cabinet, if they stand on it, they're going to run a big risk of cracking that countertop. So they can't stand on it, but you got to tell them and stress it. After they totally clean the home, you will have your painter back out there to do a final paint touch-up. They will go through the entire home and touch up everything. Because a lot of times when they install carpet and pad, they'll scratch up the walls, mess up the walls. A lot of things can happen that they'll mar up the walls. And now you have your painter out there to do a total final paint touch-up. And to be fair with a painter, because a lot of these people these different subs coming in can really mess up their paint jobs. To be fair with a painter, what I'll do is when I'm negotiating their price, I will ask them within their bid that they give me 8 man-hours toward this final touch-up. And during the 8 man-hours, they're normally able to take care of everything. And I'll tell them if they go beyond 8 man-hours, it could be 2 men working 4 hours apiece. If they go beyond 8 man-hours total, I will pay them anything above 8 man-hours. And I think that's being fair with the painter. Also at this time, you'll bring out the weather stripping that they pulled off the exterior doors, and the painter needs to reinstall all this weather stripping on these exterior doors. Provided all other final inspections have been passed and approved, you, the builder, will now call the building inspector. And if you pass the final building inspection, they will give you a certificate of occupancy, or normally called a CO. If you're in one of those cities or counties where they do everything at one time, which, I'll keep saying I hate, then they'll come out, do a final inspection on everything. If you pass this, they'll give you that certificate of occupancy, or a CO. And you're now ready to move in, but don't move in right now. After you get that CO, you now want your hardwood floor subcontractor in there to put the third and final coat on all the hardwood floors. And as a builder building a home to sell to someone, the hardwood floor is the last sub in the job. And I will tell the future owner, if there's a scratch on that floor, you did it. Because the hardwood floor sub was the last person, and no one else is going to be in there until you, the owner, start occupying the home. After that floor has adequately dried, you can now move into the home. See how easy it is to build a home? No sweat. On the move-in, I would like to just mention that if you're bringing in refrigerators or anything during the move-in, which many and most people do, check with your movers, or if you're going to do it yourself, check and get those dollies. And there's a special kind of dollies that you can put underneath like a refrigerator to roll it across not only marble floors, but especially hardwood floors, so you're not damaging and marring those floors. After you move in, you can go ahead and apply for phone service, cable TV service, have all that connected to the home. This is when I would recommend you have a big move-in party. If I'm in the area, please invite me. I'd love to help you inaugurate this home. If you haven't already done so, close on your permanent loan. There's one little item I want to pass on to you about closing on the permanent loan. If you deal with a mortgage broker, and I think this is going to make sense to you. The mortgage broker, if he looks and let's say that you qualify for a 5% mortgage, he's dealing with several mortgage companies, not as many as they used to within the current mortgage environment, but he's dealing with several mortgage companies, and he may see, even though you're qualified for a 5% mortgage, if he would put you with them at 5.5%, he would receive what is called a yield spread. This is kind of a bonus that they give the mortgage broker. If you've heard these ads on the radio or you've seen these ads, deal with us and we'll get you a mortgage with zero closing costs. The way they're able to do that with zero closing costs is via what we call a yield spread. And this yield spread does not even show up on your closing statement. The closing statement we refer to as a HUD-1. And if you look on the back or page 2 of a HUD-1, you're going to see some numbers up there, and it normally beside those numbers will say POC, which means paid outside of closing. And they're kind of sneaky how they do this. Like they may have just a number, 10,400 without a comma. It'd just be 10400 POC. And or yield spread POC. It doesn't affect the numbers on the right-hand column, your pluses and minuses. But what that is, in that case, would be a $10,400, for lack of a better word, bonus paid to the mortgage broker for putting the loan together. Now, I tell the mortgage brokers, I don't want to see a big yield spread on my mortgage statement. And if there's one that's pretty good size, I don't want to see a big fee going to you in closing costs. So it's going to be one or the other. And if I see a big fee going in yield spread, then we got a problem at closing. I just want you to be aware of that. If you've currently bought a home or you own a home, look at your closing statement called a HUD-1. Look on page 2 or the back of it and look up there where they're talking about, mortgage fees and stuff. And you may see a little old number up there that says POC, or it may say yield spread POC. And that money was paid to your broker as a little commission or bonus for putting that loan with that lender. I almost hate to tell you that because that's going to upset some of you. At this point in time, I want you to take a photo of your home. Send us a copy of your photo and a letter that if the course was beneficial to you, send us a letter to NIHB. If we use that letter and photo in our testimonials at our website, we will send you a $100 gift certificate at Home Depot. More than likely, if you go out and you build a home and you take pictures of it and you thought our course helped you, that photo and letter is going to show up in our testimonials and you will receive that $100 gift certificate. Also, by sending us this letter, we will send you an additional diploma, kind of a higher level diploma, kind of like a PhD, that you went out there and you did it. Way to go. I'm proud of you.